All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another video about Chelsea. Today, we're going to be breaking down the Todd Boehly comments about the All-Star game. That's right. We're going to get his full comments, right, in full with context. We're going to look at Ben Foster's idea. He seems to be pro All-Star match. And then we'll look at what Jamie Carragher and Thierry Henry said as well. They were quick to judge on that one. So let's go ahead and jump in. We got a lot to cover. All right. So for those of you that do not know, Chelsea's co-owner, chairman of the club, Todd Boehly, spoke at a financial conference, SALT, something like that, in New York. And he was asked about owning Chelsea and some ideas he had, which I think is very fair. He's come under immense scrutiny since then, specifically about bringing in an all-star game. I think he maybe got tripped up on saying that maybe England could learn a lesson from America and the sports and things like that. So we'll go ahead and break it down full quote. Just to give some context, everybody, he had a 27-minute discussion with this host, right? The clip that everyone is blown out of proportion, or at least overanalyzed, is 1 minute and 10 seconds. And it came from a question talking about, in general, the economics of soccer in England. And relegation came up because there's such a massive difference in the media money in the Premier League, all the way down to the championship, and all the way down to leagues 1, 2, 3, and beyond. So I think, to me, this was just a brainstorm idea he threw out kind of off the cuff. He was being asked about some ideas. He threw out some ideas. This wasn't like he brought it up in the Premier League owners meeting and it was on the agenda and it was going to be voted on. Like, this isn't fully baked out. But like, I think people are taking it as if he demanded something and it wasn't there at all. So let me go ahead. Let's go ahead and give the interviewer's question, which was the prompt, and then Todd Boehly's response. So, interviewer, quote, "Are you a fan of relegation? Do you think it's a good thing? And if it is, would it do some good for sports like baseball, basketball, hockey?" Boehly responds, quote, "It obviously prohibits tanking." He goes on to talk about how the Premier League clubs make 200 million plus from media revenue. And when he dropped down to the championship, it falls off a cliff. He goes on, quote, "Those relegation games are some of the highest broadcast games. Ultimately, I hope that the Premier League takes a little bit of a lesson from American sports and really starts to figure out, why wouldn't we do a tournament, with the bottom 4 teams? Why isn't there an all-star game? People are talking about more money for the pyramid. MLB did their all-star game in LA this year, and we made $200 million from a Monday and a Tuesday. So I think you could do a North versus South all-star game for Premier League and fund whatever the pyramid needed very easily." End quote. A couple clarifications. Tanking in American sports, you don't get to sign players. It's not a capitalist market. You get to draft players, some of the best prospects coming out of college in Europe. And so if you're the worst team, you either get the first pick in the upcoming draft, aka you want to lose as many games as you can so you can go pick the best players, or it's a lottery and you get essentially a higher chance of being in the top 3. Kind of put that to the side, right? The other thing that people are kind of jumping on right away is North versus South. What about the Midlands? Like, guys, they're included. North versus South is just the way that it's talked about, but it encompasses the entire country. This isn't literally a Manchester, Newcastle versus London derby. It would encompass the entire country. And however the Premier League clubs see fit to chop up North versus South is up to them. And look, it might change year to year based on what teams are promoted and relegated in the league, which I think is interesting. It's probably going to create a lot of difficulty in figuring out, but like, let's put that aside, right? North versus South doesn't literally mean the north of the country and the south of the country, and we forget the middle. It doesn't. So in all, right, all he's saying is that you could take a little bit of a lesson from American sports. He's not saying we know better. He's not saying you should do this. He's brainstorming, coming up with an idea where, look, he has intimate knowledge of how all-star games work in America. He just threw out 200 million in revenue. That's a big number. Don't you think football in England, if it were set up to fund the pyramid and grassroots development, don't you think that would be a good thing? Because that's his intent. His intent was to say, if you do an all-star game for the Premier League, you could then fund whatever the football pyramid needed very easily. He's not saying it goes in the Premier League owners' pockets. He's not saying we're going to use it to create a super league or whatever. I mean, he could even said, we'll fund refereeing because Lord knows we need that in the Premier League. He's not. The other thing, all he's saying is that the relegation battle in England are some of the most watched games. That is a matter of fact. All he's saying is, why not maybe formalize it more and make it a bigger deal so you can pull more money from it? Because everyone's complaining about not having enough money in the Premier League. The top 4, top 6 teams make it all because they're in Europe. Well, he's giving you ways that relegation bottom of the table teams can make money. He's coming up with solutions to the problems that people complain about year after year. And now he's getting raked over the coals for it. I don't get it. The relegation, my understanding, which is a loose understanding, is that this actually happens in a lot of other leagues. Obviously, I think in England, we know of the championship promotion playoffs, right? The top 2 teams are just in automatically. And then 3, 4, 5, and 6th place teams have a 4-team single elimination knockout playoffs. Remember, Frank Lampard was in it with Derby, made the final. Villa knocked him out, and they went up to the Premier League. Like, that exists. My understanding is that in Germany, it exists. Around Europe, the idea exists. So for them to then connect the dots and say, oh, he's an arrogant American owner who doesn't know anything, it's a little harsh, don't you think? Because he's citing established sporting platforms, structures. They may not all be in England, but they're established and successful in other parts of the world. Don't you think England should at least look at it? That's all he's saying. And the lashing back on this has been immense. Thierry Henry and Jamie Carragher on the CBS Champions League coverage yesterday. To me, and like I get they're probably put in a tough position to make an instant reaction, but like they sounded silly. Thierry Henry said, quote, "This is Europe and it doesn't work like that," end quote. Well, the problem, Thierry, is that actually England doesn't operate like Europe and that Europe does things like this. And isn't the Champions League a bit of an all-star league? It's like that idea isn't foreign. And again, the All-Star game is an exhibition. Let me riff on that real quick. All-Star games in the U.S. are glorified friendlies. Players play 20 to 30 minutes, maybe a half, because the rosters are huge. It's not competitive. There's a lot of goals because no one's playing defense, and it's a media circus. It's literally an injection of cash to the league. The players who get selected get some bonuses, and that's it. All right. I went to the MLS All-Star game versus the Liga MX, the Mexican League All-Stars game. Right. The Mexican League All-Stars trained at where I work. I watched them train. It was chill. Now, did they train hard when they were training? Yeah, but it wasn't a lot. And when you got to the game, did they care? Yeah, but like, no one was really putting in tackles. I think the game ended up being 2-1 or something like that. There were some saves, but there was a lot of pomp and circumstance. It was a light mood. The Mexican League All-Stars weren't here to smash the MLS All-Stars by any means. They were there to get paid, create some awareness, meet their fans, and like that's it. And like you see some of the fun connections out there, like could you imagine Erling Haaland and Bruno Fernandes and Saint Maximin, you know, and then on the other side, you've got obviously, you know, the London players and even some Brighton players and, you know, whoever else they can put together. There's going to be some fun kind of connections and, you know, link ups that you would never, ever see, which I think is interesting. Like, no, would Everton and Liverpool players pass each other? Maybe not, but that's up to them to figure out. So like, let's not, you know, say that, oh, this is a competitive game that adds minutes to players. It's really not. These guys come in they're there 48, 72 hours and they're gone, and it barely adds any load to them and what they're doing. So let's not get into acting like this is a big deal. And Thierry Henry, you're wrong. In Europe, there are relegation battles and things like this. Also, Thierry Henry went on to say, like, he's acting like there's no more relegation. Todd Boehly's not saying get rid of relegation. So, like, Henry, take a second. Maybe it's on the producers for not getting it to him early. But, like, that was just, like, snap reaction. And it came off, I think, very defensive. And they didn't take it in context. Jamie Carragher goes on to say that, quote, "That statement is incredibly arrogant to speak about a league you don't know," end quote. my man's, he just dropped billions of dollars to buy that club. You think he bought that not knowing anything about that league? Like, does he know everything? No, of course not. But what does he need to know? Like, he has the right to come in at the highest of high levels and only pay attention to the Premier League. He understands the structure. He knows there's 20 teams. He knows there's promotion and relegation. He knows the financials of the environment. He knows far more about the Premier League from an economics and a business standpoint than Carragher does. Carragher is just a player and a pundit. He only sees a sliver of what's going on. Running a club is way bigger than what he has awareness of. You know, what I, again, am getting annoyed at is that these pundits don't even talk about what the All-Star Game structure would be or the possible benefits. They're just immediately taking kind of the traditionalist high ground and be like, nope, we don't do that here. Get your dirty American ideas out of here. And it's very short-sighted and it's very, you know, brash. On the other side of all this, though, Ben Foster has come out, a goalkeeping union legend, podcaster extraordinaire, and he's come out and said on Twitter, quote, Todd Boehly did something. I've literally been thinking about this all morning. What you reckon? Hashtag All-Star, hashtag North versus South, hashtag Todd Boehly. And so he, in his notes app, you know, just threw down some ideas. Again, he's not saying we have to do this. All he's saying is, hey, this is interesting. Let's think about it for a second. That's all we're asking here, right? And that's all Todd was saying is like, let's think about it. It's successful over here. Could it work over there? That's it. People are blowing this out of promotion. Anyways, my man's right. Ben Foster says, and this is a funny little, he's doing like a play-by-play of what could happen. Casemiro wins the ball in the back in the midfield, straight into marauding Alan St. Maximin, who delivers a filthy first-time ball on a silver platter for Haaland to tuck it away. Just imagine. Again, those are the link-ups that you would never get in the normal kind of like season. And it's a fun thing. That's how people need to look at this. All-Star games are all about fun and just having some you know, publicity and PR and some excitement. So he goes on to say, I love Todd Boehly's idea of a North versus South All-Star Premier League game. And so here's some ideas he threw out there. He says you could replace the Community Shield with this charity-driven game instead, because it is. It's charity-driven. Todd Boehly never once said, let's do it, raise $200 million, put it in my pocket. He didn't. Ben Foster also says the winning team chooses which charity or charities. I mean, maybe. I think the FA should probably have that sorted out beforehand, though. The best Northern and the best Southern player, as voted by fans, are team captains. From there, they then get to pick the next player to go on their team. That player then gets to pick the next player of their choice, and so on until a squad of 16 is chosen. I actually think you could probably do 22 to 24, just so the minute load is lessened. Anyways, he said, he goes on, players are not allowed to pick a player that plays for the same team as theirs, i.e. Haaland couldn't pick Kevin De Bruyne or Ederson. A maximum of 3 players from the same team can be on any one team. So to me, he kind of has taken like the FPL structure in that sense, where you have your starting 11. I think, what do we have? 4 on the bench. So that gets you to 15. He's adding 1 more. You can't have more than 3 players on a single team. At least Ben Foster's giving it a moment to breathe and to think about it. And that's all we're saying. Todd Boehly is a new owner in the league, and he's coming from being a very established and successful sports owner in America. All he's doing is coming up with ideas, because when he gets there and he talks to the Premier League owners, they have complaints, they have concerns, they have things they want to do different. He's just bringing up ideas. When's the last time your owner brought up ideas? Have the Glazers said anything? Have whoever the City Football Group brought up anything? Have the FSG owners of Liverpool brought anything? What about the royal family that owns Newcastle? Well, sorry, no, they don't. PIF or whatever it is. All I'm saying is that before the last time owners brought up an idea, what was it? Super League. So for Todd to at least be bringing up ideas that grow revenues for the bottom and for the entirety of the football pyramid, how could you complain about that? Cheap shots. There's a lot of anti-American bias out there. Take it for face value. Do a thought exercise. Take 30 seconds. Think about, hey, could it work? Could it not? If it doesn't, that's fine. But at least he's bringing ideas to the table that are established and proven. You might as well take advantage of some easy opportunities instead of having this like old school traditionalist mentality. Evolution is happening. if you don't know about how the Premier League came about and massively disrupted football in its entirety in England, it used to be a non-commercialized league there. Go read the book, The Club, how the English Premier League became the wildest, richest, most disruptive force in sports by Joshua Robinson, Jonathan Clegg. We read it. It was fantastic. It took us from the hit, for us not knowing, we went from the football back, how it started, where it got to before all of a sudden these rebel owners branched off, left the FA and created an entirely new league, right? The Premier League and the FA separate, or maybe it's the Premier League and the EFL. I'm not 100% sure, but go read this. The Premier League in its existence was massive evolution and disruption to football. So we can't sit here and be like, oh, we love the Premier League, but we don't like evolution and disruption. New ideas happen. They come along. As long as everyone votes for it and it goes to a vote and has the proper due diligence, I think you should at least be taking advantage or taking a look at. So anyways, that's going to wrap it up here. In case you missed it, we did a full hour on the RB Salzburg match review on our podcast. Go check it out. I did a video with RJ yesterday as well. Tons of content as well. And lastly, if you're looking for a group of Chelsea fans to hang out with, our Discord through Patreon is there. Link in the description. One of the best Chelsea communities out there. Highly recommend you take a look. It's only $3 to $5 a month, up to you. And if you sign up for a year, it's a discount. But anyways, I'm out. We got more video coming at you tomorrow. Take care, Chelsea fans. Talk to you soon.